morning. Good morning and welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashville. My name is Jay Tiefenbrunn. My pronouns are she, her, and I am very pleased to be your director of music ministries. I'd like to invite you to join in singing this morning, this beautiful Imbolc morning, with Mother Earth, Beloved Garden in the turquoise hymnal, number 1067, Mother Earth, Beloved Garden. Please rise in body or in spirit, or make yourself ready for singing. Mother Earth, beloved garden, living treasure underfoot. All our days you ground our being, sage and thistle, grass and root. Herbs to heal us, plants to feed us, land to till and tend and plow. With the pendant deep as midnight north, we ask you be here now. Father, ere your inspiration holds together all that lives, our minds see clearly, leading us to love and give. Raging whirlwind, whispered breezes, violent gale and gentle cloud. With the blade as sharp as morning east, we ask you be here now. Brother fire, great transformer, share the passion of the sun. In our hearts your warmth revives us, cooks our food and heats our homes. Flaming candle, blood within us, blazing desert will to grow. With the one directing power south, we ask you be here now. Sister water ever flowing, ocean, river, pond and rain. Drink we now and quench our thirsting, cleanse us, we begin again. Mist and ice, a host of changes, all that courage will allow. With the cup, the holy chalice west, we ask you be here now. Lover, spirit, intuition, in the center of our souls. In your love we find relation, all connected we are all. Timeless mystery, quiet conscience, deepest values, voice inside. With the drum and with the cauldron, this we ask you be our guide. So it is. Number 29 is our next song. Number 29 in the gray hymnal, Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee. The English words to the hymn to joy, number 29. Joyful, joyful, we adore thee, God of glory, God of love. Hearts unfold like flowers before thee, hail thee as the sun above. Melt the clouds of moment to greet each other.
Good morning. Can I have the kindergarten and first grade class come down, please? Do you want your wand? Carmen? Liam? Can you light the chocolates? Can you do the actual flame? Are there any other kindergarten or first graders that would like to come join us? Okay. Do you know the words?
Love surrounds us every day. The principles show us the way.
Thank you very much. I like those things. What are those? What are those called, Sharon?
These are rainbow sticks.
Rainbow sticks. Okay. We got to make rainbow sticks for everyone, don't you think? Okay. I'd like to invite you to join your hearts and minds in the spirit of worship. These words are they're talking about the principles, right after our covenant in which we state our principles. We say the living tradition we share draws from many sources. And I'm going to read you the first source. If you want to read all of the sources of which we draw, you can see it on the page right before number 1 in the gray hymnal. We draw from direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces that create and uphold life.
Good morning. This morning's story is about a little girl named Lydia Grace Finch. She's named after her grandmother, and like her grandmother, she liked to be called Lydia Grace. It was in the late summer, late August of 1935, right in the midst of the Great Depression. And she wrote a letter to her Uncle Jim. And she said, "Hi, Uncle Jim. Grandma told us after supper that I was going to come stay with you for a while until things got better. Did they tell you that Papa's been without a job for a long time now, and no one asks Mama to make dresses anymore? So I'm small, but I'm strong, and I will help you with your bakery. Although Grandma tells me I have to do my homework first." And she goes on the train. It's a 2-day train ride. And she writes home. She's already missing them. And she says, "Dear Mama, Papa, Grandma, you know, Mama, I love this dress that you made out of one of yours for me. I feel so pretty. I hope you don't miss the dress too much. And Grandma, thank you for all the seeds. I can't wait to find a place to plant them. And Papa, I will remember what you told me about how to recognize Uncle Jim. Look for someone with a face just like Mama's, but with a mustache and a big nose." And no, I won't tell him you said that. P.S. Does Uncle Jim have a sense of humor? In October, she writes Mama and Papa and Grandma again. And she says, "Oh my goodness, the city is really something. There are window boxes everywhere. I can't wait to plant those seeds. I'll just wait right along with the window boxes for spring to come." P.S. Uncle Jim does not smile. Christmas Day, 1935. "Oh, Mama, Papa, Grandma, I hope you're having a good Christmas. Did you get my drawings? I hope you did. I wrote a poem for Uncle Jim." And he didn't smile, but he read the whole thing aloud, and then he folded it back up, and he put it in his pocket, and he patted it. Merry Christmas. In February 1936, "Dear Mama, Papa, Grandma, oh, this is just such a fun place, and I really like Ed and Emma, the people who work for Uncle Jim. And Emma and I made a deal when I got here that if she taught me how to knead bread, I would teach her all the Latin names of the flowers. So now, only half a year later, and I'm kneading bread, and Emma is speaking Latin. And P.S., Uncle Jim still doesn't smile." March 1936. "Dear Mama, Papa, Grandma, oh, I found the most wonderful secret place." And now you have to picture in your mind, this is the city, big, tall buildings. And what she found was the roof of the building. And she says, "I love this. This is just wonderful. I have plans for this secret place." And you know what else is wonderful? We have a store cat named Otis. And right now, he is sitting at the foot of my bed. P.S. I'm going to get Uncle Jim to smile. April 1936. "Oh, Grandma, you should see everything. You know, the seeds are just starting to sprout up, and you can see it coming. I can hear you saying to me, 'April showers bring May flowers.' And I'm planting seeds in all the broken teapots and the bent cake pans, and I can't wait for it to come. And even better, Emma is helping me now with the secret place. And if anything's going to make Uncle Jim smile, that'll be it." May 1936. "I'm almost ready. Almost ready. P.S. I can see Uncle Jim smiling in the very near future. June 1936. Oh, I love my secret place, and the flowers are everywhere, and I just can't wait. July 4th. Oh, I'm writing to you very early today because the store's going to close early, and that'll be for the holiday, and then I'm going to take Uncle Jim to the secret place. You should see it. And so now everyone, close your eyes and imagine that city rooftop with all kinds of flowers and maybe a few kinds of lettuce, some radishes, some onions, everything blooming wildly all over that roof. And imagine as Ed and Emma and Lydia Grace and Otis take Uncle Jim up to that rooftop. Can you see him smiling? July 11. Ooh, it was such an interesting day. I didn't know what was going on when at lunch, Uncle Jim put the closed sign up on the window. And he told us all to go upstairs to the roof to our secret place and wait for him. And we did. And he came up with the most beautiful cake. Oh, it was just swirls of fluffy, light white icing and flowers all over it. I tell you, that was the best cake in the whole wide world. And I just know it's equal to at least 1,000 smiles. And then Uncle Jim pulled your letter out of his pocket. Papa got a job. I'm coming home. And Grandma, I'm giving my plants to Emma. And I'm going to come home and garden with you because, you know, the people here, they don't call me Lydia Grace anymore. They call me the gardener. And us gardeners, we never retire. And we will now sing our children to class using the blessing on the inside back cover of your gray hymnal.
Good morning. My name is Kim Hackett. I'm an ex officio on your board here at the church. And it is my pleasure to welcome you here in the sanctuary and those joining us online to worship this morning. In order to reach a wider community than those able to be physically present on Sunday morning, our services are live streamed on YouTube and Facebook. Joys and concerns are not live streamed or recorded. Before I continue, let me remind you to silence your cell phones. As Unitarian Universalists, our spiritual paths vary, but in this congregation, we have made a covenant together. We affirm our interdependence, celebrate our differences, and work for justice. We are a welcoming congregation, and we deepen our relationships as we serve our congregation's mission to create community, nurture spiritual growth, and act on our values in the broader world, guided by reason and compassion. I want to extend a special welcome to visitors worshiping with us this morning. We ask you to wear the paper name tags because it helps us recognize you as someone we'd like to meet. If you are seeking a spiritual home, we hope you may find it here, whether you are new to Unitarian Universalism or visiting from another UU congregation. We invite you to stop by our welcome table after the service to have questions answered. All are welcome to attend our church, and people become members of the congregation by signing the membership book and supporting the church with their time and finances. If you are considering joining the church, please talk to our assistant minister, Denise Gouch. Following the service, we hope everyone will enjoy coffee and fellowship in the social hall, where you will find information about current opportunities for engagement and reflection. There are many announcements in the weekly bulletin, which I hope you will take home and read. And I have been asked to highlight one announcement. On February the 2nd, the CRE, which is today, the CRE committee invites everyone to our annual community conversation next Sunday, February 9th, immediately following the first service in the Palmer Room in the Morgan House. We'll feed you too. Children are our future, but they are also now. How do you want fun to serve them? Let us know. Thank you.
I invite you now to finish arriving here in this sanctuary. Settle comfortably into your seats. Take a few breaths. And as you're breathing in and breathing out, you may be aware that you have brought certain joys or certain sorrows or concerns into this sanctuary with you. And if you'd like to make those joys or concerns visible to this gathered community, you are invited to come forward and place a stone in this bowl of water, which represents our gathered community. Our lay minister this morning, Roddy Biggs, will help you select a stone and place it in the bowl. If you would like for your joy or your sorrow to be spoken aloud, there are small yellow slips of paper in the pocket in the pew right in front of you. If you will write legibly on those slips of paper, Roddy and I will read them aloud to the congregation. You can hand me those slips as you come forward to place your stone in the water. Holding those concerns, as well as all the things for which we are grateful this morning, and the things that are yet unspoken in our individual hearts, let us join together in prayer. Spirit of life and love, we gather this morning to be with each other, to feel the connection that runs among us, to know the presence of the love and the wisdom that runs through us, among us, within us, and around us, to learn to be together so that we can go forward into the world, to create a community, a world that sustains us, that sustains all of creation. We ask that we use this time to encourage each other, to support each other, to give each other courage for that going forward. Blessed be, and amen. In just a few minutes, the ushers will come among us with the offering bowls. It is, however, the first week of the month, so I will remind you, as always, you can give online if you prefer that. You can find instructions always on our website, firstuunash.org. There are also some notes inside the cover of the order of service about that. You may know that our congregation shares a portion of every collection taken on Sunday morning with an organization that works outside our walls in congruence with our values. For the month of February, it's a brand new month now, our Share the Plate partner is Habitat for Humanity, specifically the action team of our social justice team here at First UU. And you can read a little bit about that in the order of service, but because it is the first Sunday of the month, we have a special treat. Mike Allen, who is the Faith Relations Director of the local Habitat for Humanity, is here to talk to us a little bit more about their work. Mike, thank you for being with us.
Good morning. Well, I have two problems already. One, I'm following Marguerite, and what a beautiful story that was. It's going to be tough to keep up with that. And second, the introduction was very kind, and I appreciate it. Thank you for letting me visit with you today. I bring thanks and greetings to you from Abdillahi Hori and Zainab Abdillahi and their two young sons. For those of you who do not recognize these names, they are the family which was supported by the Unity Bill in the fall of 2019, and in which First Unitarian Universalist Church participated by providing financial and volunteer support. While the family's English is better, they are still not yet comfortable with public speaking, so unfortunately you're stuck with me instead of with them, but I'll do the best I can. First, they want me to be sure that you understand they are extremely thankful for what you did for them and for the support and for the kindness that you shared with them. Just so you'll understand a little more about the program very briefly, as part of the homeownership program, Abdillahi and Zainab, in addition to all the good work you did, completed an extensive interview and application process. They completed 70 hours of formal classroom work to help them become responsible homeowners. They also completed 100 hours of what we like to call sweat equity, whereby they worked on the homes of other families ahead of them in the program on the bill site, and then eventually worked on their home in conjunction with volunteers from the Unity Bill, some of whom obviously you were, and we appreciate that. After successfully completing the homeownership program, they purchased the house at its appraised value, signed a 30-year mortgage, and they could not have done this without your support. And again, we are certainly appreciative of that. After all of that, the family is now living in and enjoying their life in their new home in the Habitat subdivision of the Park Preserve. They're enjoying the home as they also build equity in the house. And this is an opportunity for them to build net worth that will probably far surpass anything they will ever have the opportunity for in the past. And again, you should be proud of what you have done to help them to establish their family and a good family life for them. FUU will again participate in the Unity Build in the fall of 2020. And we encourage you to sign up to, one, help build the house. And if you're not a construction person, don't worry about it. We'll teach you everything you need to know and then some about building a house. Because it's through the efforts of folks like you and your labor and your volunteerism and the financial support you provide that families like this can have a life-changing experience, and that's exactly what this has been, and you have certainly been part of that, and we thank you for that. I will be in the lobby after the service, between services, to answer any questions you may have about the program or about the family itself. But again, we thank you very much for the support that you provided in last year in 2019, and hopefully we will see you on the Bill site this coming year. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Our reading this morning is from Four Spiritualities, Expressions of Self, Expressions of Spirit by Peter Tufts Richardson. Originally, all human culture was focused on the temple. The arts, science, medicine, the hunt, field, pasture, and forest vocations, music, dance, and governance. The priest or priestess and council of elders presided over the whole, the holy unity that was society. Society entered the temple, which in turn existed as a reflection of the sacred cosmos that sustains and embraces all of life. Even hermits have a religious community for reference, support, and memory. We are social beings. In our social nature, our spirituality will emerge. No endeavor is more important for the religious community to actualize in microcosm than the practice and fulfillment of the vision we have for the well-being of the world. The temple is the crossroads and celebration of that vision. The congregation is its embodiment. Priests, prophets, professors, proprietors are its agents. All together carry on its ministry to life. Casting the issue of life in an interfaith world into its most positive arrangement, it is important to find a religious community that can be an extended family for the participation of all. At the same time, it needs to be supportive of whatever you require for participation beyond the community's immediate circle of influence to sustain your progress in your own spiritual pilgrimage. Too often, religious communities are so competitive or even agnostic toward one another that they cannot wholesomely support the needs of individuals in their own constituency to reach beyond for a part of their spiritual stimulation or nurturance. While rare, communities do exist that intentionally encourage their members to engage in whatever elements of the spiritual tradition of humankind can minister to their needs. Community helps in two ways, which are not mutually exclusive. Similar personality types will be drawn into small groups within the larger community for mutual support and understanding. But the larger religious community needs to exist for all types, not for similar types only. We need a place where we can work together to build in microcosm a support system for human spirituality that we recommend for the larger macrocosm of humanity. What we accomplish will encourage other communities around the world. We must have a place where we all work together, learning the complementary types in a context of mutual appreciation and support.
Our chant today is in the turquoise hymnal number 1003. And many of you are used to doing this as the score says, and I want to meld how we do this with how we've been doing some of the other chants this year. So I want to encourage you to find the line that speaks to where you are today and stick with it if that's what moves you, or you can be very linear in your singing and follow along, repeating each line twice, organically creating this musical experience. Where do we come from? Number 1003. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Repeat that. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? The second line goes like this. Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery, 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 life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? If I'm going to suggest line 3 is a good one to stick with today. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery, mystery, mystery. pick another line. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Mystery, mystery. Life is a middle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery.
The third principle of Unitarian Universalism is the acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregation. Our reading this morning discussed the role of community in our spiritual growth and the expanse of spiritual experiences that our congregations may nurture and hold. In order to understand and accept each other's spiritual inclinations and differences, we must also understand our own. And while our spiritualities are dynamic and often far less than static, one way to get in contact with and begin to understand who we are as spiritual beings is to examine our own direct experience of transcending mystery and wonder. The moments that have, as our first source describes, moved us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. As we enter into our meditation this morning, let's take a moment to settle ourselves into our seats. Let your eyes close or simply soften your gaze. Let your breath slow down, deepen. Allow your breathing to become intentional, an intentional anchor to your body, an intentional connection to yourself. As you relax into that connection, take a few moments to surface memories, moments in your life when you experience not only a connection to yourself, but also a deep connection with the world around you, to the universe, the cosmos, creation. Take a few moments to surface moments of connection that were fueled by awe, by amazement. Perhaps you encountered a beautiful vista, a sunset, or a sky so blue it surpasses blue into something like joyful possibility. Perhaps you felt this deep connection when holding a beloved child for the first time, or when encountering a piece of art, Perhaps you found yourself held by amazement as you worked alongside others to deliver hard-won justice to a person or community. Or when someone you love reached out to take your hand in comfort in precisely the right moment. Find your moment, your moments. Connect with them now. How have these moments of connection formed your spiritual life? How have they shaped your perception of the world, of possibility, of your purpose?
Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle, and a mystery. Now, I like to read mystery novels, but I'll tell you, I would not like it if they did not solve the mystery at the end. Yuck, and I don't like riddles because I can never figure them out. So we say we like mystery, but we really don't like not knowing what's going to happen at all. And neuroscientists would say there is an evolutionary, some of them say there's an evolutionary reason for that. So kind of building on the meditation, I'd like you to all think or remember of a time you've been way out in the country at night in the dark where there's no ambient light from the city, there's no street lights. I mean, it is dark. I don't know about you, but I'm always surprised in the last 20 years of being in the real dark, and you feel this clutch in you because you really can't tell what's happening around you at first. You just, it can feel very scary. And neuroscientist Bo Lotto, he says that scariness, that fear that you feel is actually after feeling this sense of not knowing what's going to happen, it actually relieves you. It actually is soothing compared to not knowing. So you go to fear to give closure to that feeling. Now, then imagine that it's a clear night and you look up at the sky, right? And you start noticing the stars in a way that you can never tell when you're in the suburbs or near a city. All of a sudden you can see, oh, there really is a Milky Way. There really is stars so thick it looks like somebody spilled milk across the sky. And you started getting a sense of that distance that goes out, and you feel that sense of wonder, or what we're going to call awe today. Awe. And I wanted to use the word awe partly because it is another word that implies fear. It's awesome. It's fearful. And yet it's fear in a way that actually changes how our brain works with fear. This Bo Lotto, he describes awe as a brain state. And his lab did a lot of research with Cirque du Soleil. They were all from Montreal, so they decided they'd do this together, and they went to a lot of performances of Cirque du Soleil, and they would measure the brains, I don't know how they do that. There's people out here I know who know how to do that, but there was pictures of lights lighting up in the brain before they went in and after they went in, and they assumed that most of these people felt a sense of awe when they saw people doing these amazing acrobatic impossible to most of us things. And what they found is that before they went in, most people, they called it upregulated. They were upregulated in their frontal neocortex, and that's your executive function. So, I've got to get to this performance at this time, and I'm having this scientific tests on my brain, and blah, blah, blah. So you're thinking about things, making decisions, moving through your day in that very aware way. When they came out, the frontal cortex had deregulated, and they called it the DMN, which is the default mode network, had upregulated. Now, that's different parts all over the brain, a little more on the right side. And there's been a lot of research on how people are reacting when they're in the DMN mode, and how they're reacting is they feel small, they feel very connected to everything around them. They're more pro-social, is how they call it. In other words, they'll interact with people a little more, and they're more willing to take risks. They are less needing to know outcomes or to control how things are going to come out. So they're more open-minded and more connected, less afraid of what's going to happen. One of a photographer, Dwayne Michaels, that I like his work, he said, maybe awe is that state that helps us be more courageous and less fearful. And maybe that is the function of awe. And Bo Lotto, he talks about how it seems to be evolved with this thing of not knowing, the unknown, fear, and it's kind of like the other side of fear. So I thought that was very interesting, and I want to kind of back up now and say, what in the world does this experience of transcending on wonder, or which I'm going to call awe, what in the world does it have to do with religious authority? So you're going to get a 4-sentence summation of, about almost 1,000 years of Western religious history, just Western, as it relates to authority. So I can relate those two together. Now, some of you know that during the Holy Roman Empire, which was congruent with the Catholic Church, where was authority? Who had authority? The Pope, and then religious authority, popes and priests, and they had an emperor. So it was all very single point. Very few people had authority, religious authority. And of course, the Protestant Reformation was a rebellion against that. Does somebody want to guess what the highest religious authority, the test of a religious authority was during the Reformation, the Protestant Reformation? The Bible. See, you guys know stuff. So some of the priests, the Catholic priests, said, this could be very dangerous, having the Bible be the religious authority, because when everybody reads it, they interpret it individually. Well, they didn't use the word individual, but through their own experience. And so you're going to end up, instead of one universal church, you're going to end up where everybody has their own church. Somebody actually said that. And, well, guess what? It kind of went that way. So those of you who are Methodists are seeing how people are splitting off. That's the history of Protestantism, as groups splitting off. The free church is a perfect example of that. So we come from the free church tradition, which was people who came over from Europe saying we're not going to obey the king or the pope or the bishops or the priests. We're going to have a community based on the free individual, free to have their own interpretations of the Bible, to have their own relationship with God, and the freely gathered community. In other words, you're not going to be made to be forced to be in any community. And so their final authority, though, is still the Bible, right? But it's very interesting because they encouraged that individual interpretation, and they understood that it didn't come just from the Bible, even though that was the final authority. It also came from creation, which they called it the book of nature, that you could read nature around you, and because it was God's creation, it would teach you just as much as the Bible. So over time, especially in the 19th century, our Unitarian forefathers especially, but other religious liberals and intellectuals, started to understand that the Bible had a cultural context. Matter of fact, many cultural contexts. It came from different cultures over over millennia, and that your personal interpretation was not, your inspiration didn't just come from this Bible, but it could come from other cultural gatherings of inspiration. So if the Bible is from Palestine or something, they started to say, well, why can't I read these things from Hinduism? They're gathering from a different culture the same kinds of inspiration. Maybe sometimes help us understand our human experience, our own experiences in a different way. And as they open that up, they put more and more authority on personal experience, so that by the end of the 19th century, Unitarians and then Universalists placed that final test in personal authority. Okay? And in personal experience. And the very top of those personal experiences for them was these experiences of awe. Yes, other experiences, but it's not all experiences. Yes, you have to put it all together, but there's some experiences that teach us more about love and justice and connection and living in this vast universe than others. And that's the very first one on the list. So, awe is an authoritative personal experience that helps us judge what other people tell us about religion. Your experience helps you decide if that is true or not. Okay? So does that make sense? Have I made the connection between awe and authority? Your experiences of awe are a test. They have great religious authority. Okay, so, and yet, we are still the free church tradition. We are giving all that's the ultimate test, all that authority to the free individual, but we are also the freely gathered church. Why do we have a church? We have a church because my experiences, I only experience a small part of the world, right? And I really do not know the width and the breadth of ethics and spiritual experience and how to live in this world as a good person and to celebrate the sacredness of this world without knowing other people's experiences. That's why we covenant together to nurture each other's spiritual growth. But here is what Rachel was trying to point out. We live not only in a multi-faith, multicultural world. Every single person in this church, in this room experiences that transcending on wonder differently. You process it differently from one another. And so there's a lot of studies that people do about, what are the basic different ways that human beings process their spiritual life? What are the different kinds of spiritual journeys people are on, is one way people talk about it. And so on the worship committee, we kind of looked into that because we hadn't really talked about that here. And we thought if we're going to really talk about our individual authority in community, we had to understand that people brought these very different viewpoints. And we decided to use, and it's kind of random, because how do you talk about different kinds of religious journeys or spiritual experiences? But the one that we picked was Peter Richardson, whom she read from his book, who is he is now a retired Unitarian minister, and he used Myers-Briggs typology to talk about 4 different spiritual journeys. And I have it in a little bit, just a tiny little bit of it in your order of service, because I think it's just a way to think about it. I'm not saying it is the way, it's a way. Myers-Briggs was developed from Jung, talking about people have different ways of processing the world, focuses of their consciousness that they prefer. And so Peter Richardson uses that to look at 4 ways that we prefer to go on our spiritual journey. So the first way here in the thing is intuitive thinking. And by intuitive, Jung talked about there's people who prefer to experience the world intuitively, which means they like to look at the big picture. They like to kind of use intuition a lot, think through things to see patterns in the world. They like systems, that they just approach the world that way. And said that on the other side of that, there's people who prefer to use sensate information, which is just using their 5 senses in the here and now, and they react to it first. We all do both, but they're saying we prefer it. So this is intuitive. And then the other one is thinking, feeling. So you just prefer to process things first through thinking, or process things first through your feelings. That gets complicated now, we know more, but that's how they do it. So this first thing is intuitive thinking. He says, Richardson says, well, this is the journey of unity. This is the journey of, and it's the yoga of jnana, which is study. It's people who like to think through things and see how everything relates. He talks about Margaret Fuller and then Buckminster Fuller, which I didn't even know they were related. How both had grand, unified schemes, very philosophical of the universe. Albert Einstein, people who this is their way of thinking. But I think about half this congregation is IT. And some of you noticed that we have a Buddha in the back, and that was painted by a man from Bhutan, and he painted for us the Buddha of wisdom, because he said that's who we are. So that's the NT, the Buddha of wisdom. So when people come to church, when they experience these states of awe, they prefer they react by seeking clarity. They like to have this all, make a system of this that it feels very clear to them. Now that can be through thinking, or that can be through deeper mindfulness. So people who are doing Buddhist mindfulness are often sensing that same unity. And it's a very impersonal unity. and but then people who are thinking it through. So what I think happens here in church is that the people that like a little more intellectual content in the sermon, they're NTs, they like that. They actually like the silent time too, and we really have lots of time for silence and meditation. They like things to look simple in here. They don't like a lot of decoration. They like a more simple, peaceful place. Okay, so then I'm seeing the time is moving on, so I'm just going to go quickly through the next 3, because there are definitely people here in all. Sensing, feeling people walk the path of devotion, Richardson suggests, and they experience awe they respond to awe and wonder through acts of love. The story today is the perfect example of responding through acts of love. Growing those flowers, they were awesome, but they were also trying to show love, devotion to the uncle, the girl. And then the uncle, how does he respond? He makes a cake, right? He does something. It's an act of love to show his devotion. And so people here at church, oftentimes our greeters are doing that, but you're the people that like stories like that, or like when people speak to the heart, no matter what they are. Sensing, thinking, people who are like that concrete, but they really like to process things first, are the path of works, the karma yoga, you want to call it. Or the other one would be bhakti yoga. So the path of works is work as practice. Now, we all know that there's religious communities like the Benedictines and the Gurdjieff, where work, or we heard Thich Nhat Hanh talk about paying attention as you work. That is your practice, so that's your response to this awe and wonder. You're the people that really like the testimony, or are working hard to raise money for Habitat, or like to go build. You're the people that like to stewardship, and you're the people who like the stewardship testimonies here in church. The last one is intuitive feeling, which is the path of harmony. And you like practices of gratitude. You like very intuitive visions. You like when we tell myths and legends and use a lot of symbolic imagery so that we can think about how we can move to the future in better ways. Okay? So this is the final thing I want to say. We'll be working on this all month, but what I want to say is, when I sit here in church, and I know one person hates silence, hate it. I mean, 1 minute of silence, and they want to scream and run out the door. And you're here, and I love you. And there's another person who wishes we could do an hour of silence. And why do we do anything else? You are both here, and you are both welcome. We do some silence. We do some noise for the other person. We have some things that are sensate. We have a rock. We put it in. We tell stories about people from the heart. Some of you love that, and some of you really don't like it. Some of you like it when I tell you about a chart and how things all relate together. We love both of you. So my request to you is, if we're nurturing each other's spiritual growth, we respect that each of you have your own religious authority and are testing it your own way. Amen. And would you please hold the space for the people who like something different than you do when we are doing something in church that you hate? You can tell us. because we like to make sure we're equal opportunity haters. No, everybody should have a chance to have something happen in here they do not like. Okay? No, I'm saying that to be funny. I do like to think of it in a more positive way. So, here, we are the freely gathered church of free individuals who have religious authority. May we learn to hold both together on our spiritual journeys.
Please rise in body or in spirit or prepare for singing our closing hymn, number 326, Let All the Beauty We Have Known. Number 326. Let all the beauty we have known illuminate our hearts and minds, rejoice in wonders daily shown, in faith and joy and love divines. We celebrate with singing hearts the loveliness of sky and earth, the inspiration of the arts, the miracle of every birth, life's music and its poetry surround and bless us through our days. For these we sing in harmony, together giving thanks and praise.
But not the light of truth, warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I'd like to close with some words by Gordon McKeeman. How does one address a mystery? Cautiously, reverently, with a sense of awe, hopefully, quietly. But what shall I say? Anything. Simply be in the intimate presence of mystery, unashamed, unadorned, unafraid, and at the end say, Amen. This service is over. If you are on the working karma path, just remember that your service can begin again, renewed.